All right, well, welcome everyone to Coffee with the Missionary. We're so excited to be live again this Thursday, the last Coffee with the Missionary before Christmas.
We weren't alive last Thursday, but we are live this Thursday.
We're so excited to be here with Brian and Raquel Correia, Missionaries Colombia. So, hey guys, welcome.
Hey.
Hi, thank you.
Thanks for taking the time. And we also have a special guest later on. We'll introduce her. But we have a special guest, and that's really exciting. So we want to encourage you, if you're joining us tonight for Coffee with the Missionary, we want to encourage you to comment. We also want to encourage you to like and share this video to get people involved in the conversation. We would love to, Brian and Raquel would love to answer your questions and different things like that. But without further ado, guys, why don't you just introduce yourselves a little bit about who you are, your background before missions, and kind of how you got into missions.
You want to go first?
Sure. Mm-hmm. All right, so I'm Brian Correia, Raquel. Our missions stories, I guess, kind of, they start off individual and then they kind of come together. So just bear with us. So I was called to missions. I went on 3 New Jersey AIM trips when I was in high school. The first one was when I was 14, and then I went on another one at 16 and then 17. And that's where I felt called to missions. I had the opportunity to serve in a program called Engage, which is a program where you serve alongside career missionaries on the field in different places around the world for a semester up to 2 years. And so I first went to Mexico. I was living in Guadalajara, Mexico, working with missionaries there. And then our program unfortunately had to kind of, shut down for a little bit because of some issues going on in Guadalajara at the time. And then I had the opportunity to go to Nicaragua, and I was in Nicaragua for supposed to be 6 months, and God ended up having me there for 2 years. And so I was in Nicaragua for 2 years. And that's where I felt called to Colombia, and I began the process. And that's where I'm going to end my part, so I don't get in trouble for sharing the story.
I mean, in trouble seems dramatic. Okay, that seems drastic. Okay. Hi, I'm Raquel Correia. I feel like that's unnecessary, but I'll say it anyways.
It's totally necessary.
I felt called to missions when I was 12. I went on a missions trip to New Mexico. And we worked with some of the Navajo communities out there. And before that, for like 8 or 9 years, which really isn't much for a 12-year-old's life, I wanted to be a dentist. I was super into it, don't know why. And so I came back from this missions trip, and I really felt like God had called me to be a missionary. So I came home and I told my parents, and I was like, God called me to be a missionary. My parents were like, okay, like, that's cool. That's actually not true. My dad was like, okay. And my mom was like, what? No, you're crazy. No, you're not doing that. And so then I went on mission trips every summer after that to Jamaica, back to New Mexico, to Buffalo, New York, a couple other ones. And then when I was 16, I went with my school to Costa Rica. And we were on this trip, and something about Latin American culture just hit me. And I was like, I feel like this is where I'm supposed to be. Like, I'm supposed to be somewhere where they speak Spanish, and I didn't speak any Spanish. And so I came back at 16 from this missions trip, and I was like, I'm going to be a missionary to Latin America. My parents were like, okay. And so I went to college. I majored in Spanish and elementary education. And I got halfway through my major, and Spanish was really hard. And I was like, I feel like I need to go live somewhere so I can really finish this degree. Because at the time, I didn't know there was a language school. But I was like, why would I go to a Latin American country and not speak Spanish already? And so I started my degree, and then I had heard about this program, Engage, and I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to just go, because I don't want to just do a study abroad program. I don't just want to be like a tourist in another country. I want to serve. My heart is for Latin America. And the whole time I was like, Lord, where do you want me to go? Like, what do you want me to do? What country? Whatever. And he never gave me a country. So I'm 20. I go to Nicaragua. I get there, and I'm like, wow, like, this is missions. And then I meet Brian, which was super cool, right? Because we're both from New Jersey. And you guys understand. And so, like, you know, pizza and bagels, and we had all these really cool things in common. Also missions and Jesus, but also pizza and bagels.
Mainly food, though.
Jesus, food. Bagels, pizza, coffee, somewhere in there.
And cannoli. And so it was really cool. And like he was called to missions and he already spoke Spanish. And so it was really awesome how God really aligned the two of us to do something really similar without even having known it. You know, before Brian announced that he was going to Colombia, before he announced what like his initial like directive, what he felt like God wanted him to do, God was doing those same things in myself before we were even together and before I even really knew what God was doing. And so then by the end, it was like, oh my gosh, wow, we have the same calling and we are both from New Jersey and we have so much in common. Like, this is so great. And then we eventually got married. Not when we were 20.
Our initial process, I mean, maybe some other people can relate, but it wasn't as quick as I'd hoped. And it was really funny. I was talking with the missionaries, actually, Mel's dad, Dave Greco. I was talking with him a while ago, and it slipped out of my mouth. And it wasn't that I meant it this way, but it really spoke to like my heart about it. And then he kind of like spoke to, I said, yeah, so like, what's the quickest way that I can get to the mission field? You know? And he's like, yeah, so let's like re-ask that question. Let's say like, what's the best way that you can get to the missions field, right? And so I didn't really understand the value of that at the time because this was my very beginning when I was like first starting to talk about like going to Colombia and I was going to be a missionary associate. Yeah. And so I began this process thinking, okay, I'm going to go back to the States after I was in Nicaragua. I was going to raise my funds and within like a year be in Colombia. And so it ended up being that I started off as a missionary associate. During that time, Raquel and I started alone. Raquel and I started dating. We got married, and then we moved to Career Missions, and then we had to fundraise. By the time we had finished, I think it was about 2.5 years before I got to Colombia.
Yeah, he started in 2013, the end of 2013, the beginning of 2014, and we finally left 2017.
But it was really awesome because we've been here now for about a year, and yeah, close, a little over a year, and it's been so crazy to see how this being the timing for us to get here was the best time for us. For me to first off come, you know, married with my wife, you know, how that was so much better than coming alone. And then how like just the timing of, you know, just things going on in Colombian culture, you know, us feeling called to unreached people groups and kind of like remote places. And, you know, there were several places in Colombia that were just like inaccessible, many more places than there are now because of just like the drug trade, the rebel groups and stuff like that. But Colombia in 2015, 16, signed a peace accord with one of our rebel groups, which made much of Colombia much more safer than it ever was, allowing us to really go to places that before we just would not have been able to go to. So really cool to see how, like, you know, just trusting and really trusting that God really had called us, you know, in the 2.5 years that we spent in the States. And it was like, oh my gosh, like, Lord, are we ever going to leave? You know, and then to get here and see exactly kind of how he was working. And it's been really awesome.
That's awesome. And what I love is that, like, and I don't know where you guys were at when you were 20, 21. You know, I know a lot of people around that age are kind of like very focused on dating and getting married and all that kind of stuff. But you guys were obedient to God's call. And even though you both grew up in New Jersey and pretty similar areas, North Jersey, God had you both meet in, was it Mexico or Nicaragua that you guys met? Nicaragua, yeah. So it's like, it's just crazy though, because you guys were both obedient to that above and beyond like any other personal desires. Like, God still, I don't know, he can match people up anywhere. And I think that's so cool.
That is so awesome. Yeah. And for those of you who are just joining us, welcome to Coffee with a Missionary. We're talking with Brian and Raquel Correia. They're in Colombia. And for those maybe who are not great at geography, we have a little map of Colombia. So maybe Brian and Raquel, if you guys will talk us through this on the screen here. So that's Honduras.
I was like, wait, I'm not good at geography, but that's not Colombia.
Okay, I'll explain it all.
Joke. Okay. All right. So this is Colombia.
Yes.
That's awesome.
All right, so this is kind of Central America there, and this is Colombia itself. Now, what city are you guys in?
We're in a small city called Armenia. So if you look on the map, there's Cali and there's Bogota. If you pretty much put a dot to make a triangle between those three directly I guess that's west of Bogota and north of Cali. That's where we would be in Armenia.
Okay. Okay, wonderful. And we have Luis Farias says, Viva Colombia para Cristo. Thank you, Luis, for tuning in and saying hi. And that's amazing. So,
all right. So about Colombia, is there something that people don't know that you guys do about Colombia?
Yeah. So, okay, yeah. I'll say the import or export.
Okay.
So Colombia's biggest export may surprise people, and legal export. Many people may think that Colombia's main export is coffee, but our largest export is actually flowers. We have many flowers come out of Colombia. Yeah. So a lot of the flowers and stuff are flown up. We have tons of roses. It's funny, as you come into Bogota, flying over getting to the runway and stuff, it looks kind of boring, the route they have you going in. And there's all these greenhouses like the whole way. And they a lot of them have flowers and stuff in them. So
that is interesting. Any specific kind of flower, or is it just pretty much?
Well, I don't know if we grow them. Orchids. Colombia apparently has like the most diverse amounts of orchids in the world. And then I think a lot of the flowers that they grow there are roses, if I'm not
Which is great, because roses are really inexpensive by like the dozen. So it's great.
Because of how much Brian gets in trouble with you, it's really good for your missions budget because he doesn't have to spend a lot to apologize.
Yeah, there was like a wink in that.
I just think it's funny because I remember one time trying to buy roses for somebody in the States, and I think it was for my mom for like Mother's Day, and I picked up the thing and I was like, oh my gosh, like the amount of roses is so much money. And I was in college, right? So like I had to put it back, and I was like, can I buy a single rose?
They say it's the thought that counts, but then when push comes to shove, it never matters as much.
Well, so we have a poll for all of those people that are watching, okay? We have a poll here. This is what you guys just said. So if anyone was just watching, you should be able to vote and get this right. But we're saying, what is Colombia's biggest export? Is it coffee or flowers? And we're just going to leave that up as kind of a test to see who's been paying attention and who's been watching. So we'll see. We'll kind of monitor that as it kind of goes on. What happened? Whoop!
There you go.
We lost them. Okay. So everyone, join in that poll. We'll watch it. Okay. We got people paying attention here. That's great.
Encouraging.
That is. So Colombia, you mentioned it briefly. You talked about how recently they signed an agreement with one of the rebel groups. But probably when most people think about Colombia, they think about drugs, and they think about different danger. They think about cocaine. So maybe talk a little bit about how Colombia is now, for you guys. You mentioned it's a little safer. You mentioned there are more areas that you're able to get into. Talk a little bit about kind of the situation in Colombia for people who think it's just dangerous and there's a lot of drugs.
Yeah, it's really hard because Colombia, anybody who comes to Colombia will see and feel that Colombia is so much more than any of the past problems or current problems that we've ever seen. So I'd say that, like, in reality of everything that Colombia is, everything that Colombians are, Colombia is so much more and so much richer than the issues that we've had here. But at the same time, there is kind of a reality that has to be acknowledged, especially as missionaries, where like we're not trying to just go to some touristy places, but we're trying to like really work throughout the country in different places and having
places that people don't always want to go to.
And having the knowledge of like, okay, this place is good and this place is not. Like, you have to accept that reality. You can't just kind of live in a world that says all of Colombia is wonderful. Anybody who really wants to come to Colombia on a trip or even a short-term trip, like, you're not really going to be in a place that's dangerous, because I'd say about 80% of Colombia's land coverage is like totally fine. And most of the areas where it's rough, it's like the middle of the jungle, and it's like there aren't really people there anyway. So it's kind of hard. But there are some areas. So Colombia had like one big rebel group, the FARC, that have been around. There's been basically a civil war going on for about 50 years, over 50 years, and they were able to sign a peace accord with them, and it's brought some change. It hasn't brought everything, but it's brought some change, and drug trade is just a really lucrative business. So anywhere in the world that exists, which is pretty much every country in the world, I'd say, right? Like it exists. But like I said, it's kind of in like the far out places, but it does kind of affect our ministry, because there are certain places, not like many, but there are certain places where it's like, you know, we either can't go, or if we do go, it's with someone who's from that area, who knows everything about that place. And you really have to be like wise about it. But it's outside of that, Colombia is so much more, and so much more beautiful, and the people and the ministry opportunities are so vast that yes, it affects us, but it's not the main effect of our ministry.
Yeah. So now you guys said that you've been in Colombia now for a little over a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is your first term, you know, you guys have done missions work, but this is your first time together, married, on the field. So looking back over the last year, 2018, what is a word or a phrase that would kind of best sum up this year, you know?
Expect the unexpected.
Okay. Now I'm going to ask you to divulge. What does that mean?
It sounds like a cliche, right? People say all the time, expect the unexpected, right? And it's funny, we were actually just reflecting on this like last week while we were visiting some family about how everything that we thought being career missionaries would be, it's not. And so much of it is really like, oh man, like I'm kind of type A, right? And I'm a teacher. So I had like a list of things that I really thought we would totally be able to do, like no problem. And I was like, oh yeah, we could do this and this and this. And then we got here and it was not at all what I imagined. And I just like kind of took a step back and I was like, all right, God, like, I know I heard you, but like, this doesn't look like what I thought it was going to look like. This is really different. And so, ministry opportunities and people that we've been able to interact with, it's all been stuff that we really didn't foresee.
I think like even like just thinking back of like the day that we arrived in Colombia, like we had a missionary family that we knew who came pick us up. All that we had was in our bags. And we didn't have a cell phone chip. We didn't have an apartment. We didn't have a car. We didn't have anything. We really, an ID. We didn't know really anybody. And I remember getting here and then going to the first pastors meeting and with just like local pastors and just thinking like, okay, like now what? You know, like how does ministry and life form now? Like it's like you're just in it all of a sudden and everything you've prayed about and but it's not like you just come in and it's like, man, like gung ho, we're gonna just do all this stuff and
or maybe you come in thinking that and then it's completely different.
But it has been really valuable because more than what we can do has been like what we've become, right? And so like, you know, the journey of like of patience, the journey of like developing relationships, the journey of the scenic route has made us better missionaries. That now that after being here over a year, it was cool. Like I had gotten to go to a pastor's meeting pretty much like on the 1 year date that we had arrived, and I showed up and you know, we're like hugging with people, having small talk with everybody, you know, kissing cheeks, doing all this different stuff. And it was awesome. You know? And I was like, look at like everything that's happened in 1 year. And with every pastor, like a story that we had, a ministry that we've done together, of an experience that had happened between us. And so like God's faithfulness being in that, but just landing here was kind of like, and the whole journey was not what we expected, you know, like,
even the first month that we were here, like we got here, we found an apartment like 10 or 11 days after we were here and like moved ourselves right in. And then like, I don't know, maybe 10 days after that, we went to the Amazon for an unreached people group consulta, like a conference. And so like, then we get there and we don't know anybody. And so like, there's the first half with like all of the, a lot of the veteran missionaries around Latin America who have worked with unreached people groups. And so I'm like, wow, like they've done it. That's amazing. And then we meet a bunch of other Latin American missionaries from Latin America. So like we met a handful of Colombian missionaries who work with unreached people groups from Colombia with the Colombian Assemblies of God, which is awesome. And so then we came back from that, and then we went to Cali to help a missionary family there for like 3 days. And then after that, we were invited to preach at the missions convention for like 12 or 15 services in 2 weeks. And so like by the end of like the first month and a half, we were like, whoa, we just did all of these things, and now we know all these people. And it was great though, because like, for me at least, I'm always really worried about like friendships, right? Like I feel like I keep jumping from place to place, and like I can't just make friends. Like I need to have life friends, like forever friends that I don't have to leave ever again. And so obviously we were at language school for a little bit, made those forever friends, and I was like, all right, see you later. And then we got to Colombia, and I was like, Brian, like I'm not gonna have any friends ever, and like I don't know what we're gonna do, and like who am I gonna hang out with? And so it was really, really crazy. And I sometimes underappreciate how much God really does look out for like even those little things. Yeah. So we're in Colombia for like 10 days. We go to this unreached people group convention, and I meet this one couple who lives in our city who are Colombian missionaries to Colombia to work with unreached people groups. And me and the one lady, like we hit it off super quick. And then I meet this other couple, and the wife is Venezuelan, the husband's Colombian. They're missionaries with the Colombian Assemblies of God, and they're moving to our city next month. And so like within a couple of days, like I had these friends that we like spend time with, and we spend holidays with them, and like we saw them like, I don't know, for a collective 20 hours in the last week. And so like celebrate birthdays together, and we do all these things together. And so like those are really special. We have our missionary family too, but like even those things that like I expected the missionary family to be there like from the United States, but to have the Colombian friends too, like so quickly, I was like, man, God, like you totally did it. Now I have friends like go get coffee with and hang things out with. And so that was really special for me, because the little things too, like expect the unexpected. I did not expect to have friends that fast.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's encouraging to hear too, that like God meets the needs that he knows that you need, you know, like that's.
And I did want to circle back around, because it's interesting, because both of you had experience on the mission field together in Nicaragua, and then Brian in Mexico too. So, you know, for some people, maybe they feel a call of God. They've never been on a mission trip, or they've just been on a mission trip once. You guys had spent extended time in Latin America in a missions environment doing missions work. So it's interesting even then that you were kind of hit with this unexpectedness. Even on top of that, you know, I feel like whatever expectations you had, they were probably warranted, because you weren't like just, you know, some ignorant people thinking about, oh, mission field, this is what it's going to be like. You had a decent idea. So that's really cool.
About the only advantage that we had was our Spanish that we had already learned.
That's true.
But even then, we would get here and they would just use different words, different phrases that like you figure out. But like the first few times, you're like, "What are you talking about?"
What does that mean?
And that
so
happened a lot.
That was probably our biggest advantage, though, is that like we were able to communicate off the bat. But like it didn't mean that it was easier for us.
No, not at all. It's funny. Just I'm going to add one more thing, and then I promise I'll let you ask another question. It's really funny, you know. I lived in Nicaragua for 1 year when I was 20, right? And so I'm like, man, I don't really remember experiencing culture shock when we lived in Nicaragua. And so I'm like, I'll probably be fine. Like I didn't have culture shock in Costa Rica. I don't think I had it in Nicaragua. Like it's fine. And then Christmas of last year hit, and I had my first Christmas without my family. And all of a sudden, just one day, it was December 15th. It was a year ago, like a couple days ago. And I just like shut down, and I didn't want to do anything, and I didn't want to talk to anybody. And so like I went to my missionary, like mentor supervisor's house, and I'm like hysterical. I'm like, maybe I wasn't supposed to be a missionary. Like, I don't know what happened. I really, and so she like looked at me, and she's very like thoughtful. And she just looks at me and she goes, well, you've been here for like 4 months. It's just culture shock. And I was like, oh. And not that it was like a cop-out, but I think sometimes in those beginning things where you're like, everything's unexpected, or maybe like, I really feel like I have experience, and you get there and you're like, oh my gosh, like, it's okay. It happens.
Right. And I feel like sometimes too, if you're someone that moves around a lot or experiences new things, you think you're kind of get like immune to culture shock. And you don't really see all the ways that it affects you. Like you think culture shock, okay, I'm going to have a hard time adjusting to language or to cultural differences. But just the sheer fact that you're separated from family, like So for those of you that are just tuning in, or if you just don't know, we know these guys pretty well. So we're very excited to be actual real life friends with them.
Yes.
But I know that, especially you, Raquel, you're super just tight with your family, like that's life. Family is life for Italians, and that's just what it is. And so when that's removed, like that's totally a sacrifice and something that's, it's coming, but then when you feel the impact of it, it's like, holy heck, what is happening? So,
and before we go on, I do want to just say for those who are watching, we're going to put up a little poll here. We're going to say, how do you feel about 2018? Okay. And we'd love to get your feedback. Are you excited about the new year? Are you excited that, all the new opportunities that 2019 can bring? And you're like, okay, I'm done with this year of 2018. Or are you sad to say goodbye? 2018 has been a great year for you. So we're excited to hear. Excited to hear what you guys have to say with that. Real quick, we also want to highlight a comment from Sarah Donna Maria, fellow missionary. She says, I love you guys.
I grew up with Sarah Donna Maria, and now she's a missionary in Costa Rica, and it's the most magical thing ever because we grew up at the same church. Like, we sit in kids' church. I sat in the front row, and she sat in the second row with all her friends, and so I love that. Oh, Sarah.
That's amazing. And Mario Solari, he answered correctly that flowers was the best export there.
Mario.
We have a special guest that we're going to introduce in just a second. We're almost ready. We're almost ready. But before that, actually, let's introduce a special guest, and we'll talk about you guys' exciting new opportunity. We'll talk about that at the end.
Okay.
First, we want to introduce a special guest. So let's have her.
She's moving out of the frame.
Oh,
No.
there she is.
Hello.
Hi,
Hey,
Danisia.
Danisia.
Thank you so. This is so exciting that you're able to be with Brian and Raquel.
I know. This is so unexpected. They told me, right? Expected unexpected.
Yeah, right?
This is unexpected. But I am glad to be part of it today.
Oh, this is so awesome. So we would love to hear just you introduce yourself. You're a missionary in Honduras. Maybe talk a little bit about that, and about your background.
And why you are in Colombia tonight.
Well, I am Danisia Ruffin, and I am a missionary in Honduras. I actually am living in San Pedro Sula, which is the second largest city in Honduras. And I think, I guess if I could talk about my missions background, I would say that I didn't know anything about missions. I didn't grow up wanting to be a missionary. I had no idea what a missionary was until I was probably about, 25 years old.
Wow.
I didn't grow up Assemblies of God. And so I grew up Baptist, and missions just wasn't a huge part of our, of our upbringing, right? And so if you had asked me what a missionary was, I probably would have said, the person on TV that says, for 10 cents a day, you can feed these children in, Africa or something. Because that's the only reference point that I had for missions. And
Wow.
so it wasn't until I got an opportunity to go to Costa Rica that I even understood what missions was all about. So I went to Costa Rica for a language school, right, to learn some language and learn some Spanish. And it was there that I got to meet a lot of other missionaries. And it kind of just blew my mind what they were doing and how they were serving God all across the globe. So that kind of was like how I got started in missions. And I actually met a missionary there, an AG missionary in Costa Rica. And she was the one who introduced me to AG missions. She was the one who kind of walked me through when I kind of felt God was calling me to missions, but I wasn't really sure and I didn't know anything about it. And she really helped me to understand, what it was that was happening. And she said, if you're interested, you should try, missions, like try Assemblies of God. Like we this is what we do. And I think that you'll find a good fit there. And she was right.
Wow.
That's awesome.
And we have a bunch of shout outs. So first of all, Tracy Orozco says Danisia.
Tanisha! Come on.
Then,
They're going to El Salvador.
they're going where?
El Salvador. They're
El Salvador.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then Sarah Donna Maria says, hi, Denise.
No, you got to get more into it. It's
she's
all
got the
capitals.
girl comments.
Tanisha! That's, I mean, when it's a cat, you got to get girth in the throat.
Sarah, yeah, like obviously we have the Jersey thing in common.
Right.
And I could spend some time with her at language school too. Hi, Sarah.
Awesome.
And then Teresa Vasquez
Oh,
says,
Teresa. Okay.
Tanisha! I'm sure that one is actually starting to hurt.
That's so great. Teresa and Freddie, they're my field moderators in Honduras.
Oh,
Wow.
very cool. All right.
That's awesome. So why don't you share with us something that maybe most people don't know about Honduras? And sorry, before you do that, this is the actual map of Honduras.
No, wait, that's Colombia.
We thought it was Colombia. we don't know our own
You can't
geography.
fool me.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my beautiful Honduras.
Aw.
Okay, yeah, so share a little bit about Honduras and where you're at.
It's so funny because Brian was talking about, just what like exports and how what people think the biggest export would be for Colombia. And it's kind of similar to Honduras because like a lot of Latin American countries, you think it's going to be coffee or fruit or something agricultural. But I just found out recently that out of all of its exports, especially last year in 2017, like the biggest export, the most lucrative thing for Honduras were knit textiles. So like knit shirts, knit doilies, keychains, all those little things that you find in the markets, right?
Yeah.
Like those little things that are made by like sweet Honduran grandmothers. Those things are like they made the most money, right?
Wow.
Like almost, I think, probably like by a landslide. Like coffee was like number 2 at like maybe 7 million, and I think knit textiles was like almost double that, like 13 million.
Wow.
And so it was really interesting to me because it was something that didn't have anything to do with food or anything to do with coffee. Yeah. And it made me wonder like how I can find a Honduran grandmother to teach me how to knit so I can raise money for my next term.
That's a good idea.
There you go. On the greatest export of the country.
Yeah,
Really good
I mean,
idea.
working with them, right?
It's
I
amazing.
love it.
Oh, well, it's so great to have you as a guest, Danisia. And so we're going to play an exciting game with you and with Brian and Raquel. So I don't know, is there a way that we can get you all in frame there?
Yeah.
Is that possible?
We'll just all stand up.
Oh, really? No.
Stand up side by
If you
side.
could actually sit on each other's shoulders and then put the camera vertical, that would be best. All
Okay.
right, there you go.
Ooh, that works good.
A little stagger.
I'm super competitive, so
Ooh, okay.
prize, is there a
exciting.
prize?
Is there a prize? I'm trying. Yes, there's a prize.
What's the prize?
I don't know, but it has to be something good.
This is going to be bragging rights. Okay?
No, who cares about bragging rights?
Well,
We'll talk.
well, anyway, this is our first. This is a coffee with a missionary. First, we're playing charades, okay, and we're going to explain the rules really quickly.
There are no rules.
Okay, so before we start, and I meant to say this all beforehand, but basically, what's going to happen is we're all going to have 4 opportunities. Each unit, so Mel and I, Brian and Raquel, and Danisia, each unit is going to have 4 chances to. There you go.
You're getting called out,
Danisia
Danisha.
You're going to have 4 chances to answer correctly. And thanks for tuning in, Darren. Darren says hi from Destiny, Dayton, Ohio. And yeah, so time out on the explaining rules. Danisia, you've been in New Jersey, but you're out of the Ohio district?
Yes.
Okay.
So, really briefly about that is that when I first was called to missions, I was living in New Jersey. And so I became a New Jersey MA. And then while serving in Nicaragua, I got really sick and had to come off the field for a little while to recuperate. And obviously, I went to Ohio where my family is. And I spent about a year and a half or so recuperating there, and just felt like God wanted me to go as a fully appointed missionary and to go from Ohio, which was really crazy because all of my experience, all of my connections, all of my relationships were in New Jersey.
Okay.
But like God, he always has a plan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even when I wasn't sure what the plan was and how I was going to do it, he really blew my mind, and here I am.
Oh, that's
interesting.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So back to charades. Okay, what I need you to do is each unit. So we are going to think of two things. Danisia, you need to think of two things, and Brian and Raquel, two things. Okay. Now we don't have pieces of paper, so you just have to keep them in your head. But basically, we're going to rotate, and when Mel and I, we are going to have something in our head, and we're going to act it out. And as we're acting it out, Danisia and Brian and Raquel, this is where you're facing each other. So we're going to act something out, and the first one to raise their hand, not literally facing.
I was confused too.
This is where
competing against each other.
this is where you're going to be competing against each other.
They're
So
not allowed to look.
So when we're going to be acting something out, and you raise your hand, first one to raise your hand, you get the guess.
We're acting something out.
We are acting something out for Danisia and Brian and Raquel.
Okay.
All right. And whichever one of you gets it first and gets it correct, you get the point. All right. Then it moves on. Danisia, you're going to act something out, and Brian, Raquel, and us are going to try to be the first ones to answer it correctly. Whoever does gets a point. Then it's going to move Brian and Raquel. You're going to act something out, and Danisia versus us two. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Hey, we need to have a teammate real quick because a teammate just walked in the door.
Ooh, we got an extra teammate.
Come on
All right,
now.
wonderful.
I had to get the prophecy. Is his name Sean?
Yes.
What? How did you know?
Jesus is alive. Amen.
Sean is looking at you with like a side eye, right? Like
Fear is moving.
So this is Sean.
Sean.
a different pace of accent we got here.
He is a missionary associate here in Colombia, working with Ryan and Caitlin Jordan. He's a good friend of ours. We met him at language school.
Charades. Great. You and Danisia come up with two things that you're gonna think to act out, and then you'll act them out, and then first one to guess, right?
Hi,
So-
Danisia. Nice to meet you.
We don't know each other. We're gonna win this game.
All right, let's do this.
Okay, so this is how we're gonna kind of do it. Okay, each unit think of two things that have to do with your context. So Brian and Raquel, think of two things that have to do with life and ministry in Colombia, and you'll act those out, and we'll guess. Danisia and Sean, I guess you get to battle over Colombia and Honduras there. And then Mel and I will talk about Mexico/New Jersey.
All right, so hold on. I'm going to throw up some music real quick to play. And then when the music ends, no, I'm not. My phone is on the brink of despair. So
No music.
just awkward humming for a minute. Everybody talk. Okay.
All right, are you guys ready?
We have one at least.
We don't have.
Got 15 more seconds.
All right. If you are just joining us, this is Coffee with a Missionary, and we are playing charades, okay? We are playing our first episode of charades here. This is Coffee with a Missionary first. We have tons of special guests. We're talking with Brian and Raquel Correia, who are on the extreme left of your screen. Brian and Raquel. They are missionaries in Colombia. And they have guests with them, Sean, who's a missionary associate in Colombia, and Danisia, who's a missionary associate in Honduras. And we are all getting ready to play a game of charades. So we're ready. We will go first, okay? So we are going to we're going to act something out on, I'm going to say go, and we're going to act something out. So any member of your team, when you think you know what it is, raise your hand. Don't blurt it out. Just raise your hand. We'll call on you.
So how about I'm acting it out and you call on whoever you think is first?
Sure. So you guys ready?
Yes.
Your
All
mark.
right. Oh, hold on. And if you want to play, if you're watching, you can comment in if you think you know the answer. We'll love to get your comment.
And I'm just warning you, it's very,
Against all of us.
very complicated. Okay? So tell me when to go.
Very complicated.
All right, here we go.
All right.
Here we go.
Oh, we're like standing up.
Am I
No,
going?
no.
Oh,
Yeah.
I have to get into character.
Go.
Nice.
Baby.
Oh,
Wait.
I-
Raquel.
I want to
Raquel.
say Jeff's adoption.
What?
Oh, never mind.
She said Jesse's adoption.
Very good
No.
guess, but no, that's not correct. Anyone
That
else?
was very specific.
Can I say motherhood?
Motherhood?
See, these are great things, but you guys are going like too conceptual. Just bring this down to like.
I was kidding about the complicated thing.
Okay.
Ryan.
Rocking a baby.
There we go. All right. One
I thought
point.
it was about our life and ministry, and so we guessed really things pertinent to that.
Everyone else would have known the specifics of.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
You had it exactly right,
My
Raquel.
life-
But hey, your team still won. So 1 point, Brian and Raquel. All right, so Danisia and Sean, you guys are next. You're gonna act something out, and we're gonna have to try to guess.
So one of you guys act out and one of you guys point to someone.
Okay.
They read.
He's going to add more points.
Trying to make sure I'm staying in the camera.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Mel thinks you know.
No, you weren't
Oh,
first.
sorry.
Brian, you have to raise your hand. You weren't even listening.
I'm not good.
Go ahead.
The humble host, Brian. Go ahead.
A video camera.
Yeah, good job.
Wait, did I really get it? I'm sorry. I'll give you half a point.
I was gonna say boxing.
Okay. 2 points.
2 points. You guys are running away with this thing. All right, you're up now. You can't get a point on this one.
I think maybe we'll do a little bit of both, and if they can't get it, we'll switch roles. You try yours, and then if they can't get
Okay.
it,
All right. Ready?
All right, go.
ready? Watch.
Okay.
Oh, a drone.
No,
No. Kind of.
no.
Making tortillas.
Stop. Oh my
No.
God, Brian. Go up the mountain.
You already just said that
Hey.
That's not it. That's not what it is.
last. Okay.
Okay.
We're gonna
Oh my
get
Lord.
points, but we're not gonna act it.
Stop.
I don't know how.
Oh,
Go, Danisia.
Okay, Danisia.
unreached people group.
Yeah.
Oh, hold on.
Okay.
Are you dancing?
Yeah.
Or are you
Driving.
driving?
Yeah, we're close.
What did he say?
Driving up a mountain.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
close. Right, a little bit more specific.
Driving
Driving.
up the mountain.
Driving.
Driving
Oh,
into
God.
the jungle?
No.
I don't know. Like,
We really thought this out better when we were doing it.
I will never march in the infantry.
We're on the side of driving, but we're not saying driving.
You're flying.
Going.
Go.
Passing.
Sort of.
Singing.
Traveling.
No.
We're getting there. All these.
Running.
Manejando.
Oh God.
No. Guys, we're good at
I
this.
tried to give you a clue,
No.
but I don't think it's gonna work.
What did you say, Danisia?
I said running for Jesus.
I feel like we have to give a clue, but I don't know if the clue is fair.
Think of our, you said to
You
our
said our
context.
contacts, right?
So our
Right.
context.
Absolutely.
Right?
I feel like we need to like stand.
All right, driving your speed the light car.
Yes, a speed of light. That was the one. Speed of light.
It said driving rain. Okay. Good.
It was
Good. Yeah. That's good as
And then the light was out there, but you can't see my light.
The light.
So this was speed.
I
Yeah,
tried
like
to tell him that wasn't gonna be
speed
speed, but I let him go for it.
Good job, Brian.
Hey,
All
we're
right, so
winning.
did anyone get that?
I gotta go get Jesse. I did. I said speed the light.
All right, so we got
Yeah.
1 point.
All right, did I get it?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. We'll give it to you.
Okay, 1 point. So Brian and Raquel have 2. We have 1. And now we're starting. This is our last round. All right. So
And speaking of rocking the baby, I need to go rock the baby as soon as
Mel-
this round is over.
Mel has to literally rock the baby. Okay.
I jinxed it.
All right. So here we go. I'm going to act and you call people out. Okay.
Okay. What are you doing? Oh, that's right.
All right.
We like to stand here. We're a standing family.
All right.
Oh, yeah. I respect that.
Guitar. Oh,
Brian. Brian.
Oh, man. Electric guitar.
Negative. Danisha, you had your hand up.
I was gonna say Guitar Hero.
Oh.
Well, he's my hero, but
All
no.
right. All right. So you obviously got the guitar.
All right, Sean.
Music in general, like a music ministry, yeah? No?
Music.
We'll give it to you.
It's
Yeah,
close.
it was worship leading was the one.
Oh, you had the word ministry in there, and you won yourself the deal. So
Okay, Mel's got to head out. So that was Sean and Nisha. So that's 1 point for you guys. So we got 2, 1, and 1. I want to say Josue says I'm Salvadorian. I see them from Indiana. So welcome, Josue. I'm glad to have you. Glad you're listening. All right, so this is the final round. 2, 1, and 1. All right, Danisha, you and Sean, you guys act out here.
Okay, I'm acting and Sean's gonna point.
Okay.
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Arepas.
Oh, my gosh. No. Hold on.
Oh,
Wait. Raise
Right.
my hand. Okay.
Ryan.
Tortillas.
Yes.
Oh,
we don't have another one.
I thought it was, but then I was like, I already guessed that. She wouldn't use that. Wow, the domination continues. So no one can win. On this last round, no one can beat you guys.
Don't send it here then.
Well, congratulations, Brian and Raquel, the champions.
Woo! Are we gonna act those out, or are we just gonna
It
leave
doesn't
it?
matter. We can leave it.
I'm
It wasn't that close.
Are you excited about it?
No.
Wow.
It
Thank
wasn't
you.
that.
We excited.
Oh yeah.
Oh, now I know it.
Oh, Sean heard
It was
it.
lame. It wasn't a good one.
We would have been bad at it. We were gonna do coffee, but we would have been bad at that.
Oh man, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, that was a great time. Thank you guys for playing. Thanks, Sean, for coming at the perfect time.
Yeah,
All right.
All right. Let's see. All right. Sign up. Okay.
All right.
So as we kind of get to
Hold on, really
We
quickly.
just have to give a quick shout out for Danisha's hookup in Honduras, who got us these cookies.
It's Colombia and Honduras.
So we're going to be partaking in these cookies as we finish up.
that
As
is,
victory.
that is amazing. Yeah, send one our way. That would be incredible.
I'll send you this one.
Well, it's been awesome talking with you guys. And before we kind of land the plane, I guess, we do want to talk to you about an exciting new opportunity that you have. And you told this story to Mel and I before, but I'd love for those listening or watching on the replay to be able to hear it. Just awesome story about an exciting new opportunity that is coming your way in Colombia.
Yeah. So like our first year of being here in Colombia was kind of spent traveling around the country, getting to know the country, the different pastors, the different opportunities, and not just kind of like come in assuming we know what's best, but actually learning and seeing how we could best serve alongside the Colombian National Church, which is really an awesome church.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're here in the city of Armenia in Quindío. We have a few other missionaries that are here who have been like super helpful for us in this whole transition and have really helped us understand Colombia to the point that we understand it now. Not that we understand everything, but to the point that we understand it now. But one of the places that we had gotten to travel to is a place called the Cauca. So in Colombia, we have departments, which are similar to states. And there's a department called the Cauca. Some of you who may know about Colombian geography, maybe have heard of the city of Cali, which is a big city. And that's in the department of Valle de Cauca, which is different. But directly south of there is another one called the Cauca, and that's where this is at. And really exciting because the Cauca for a long time has been kind of like I don't know, like I guess like a forgotten region of Colombia because it was kind of and still in some areas like an epicenter for some of the illegal activity that happens in Colombia. Yeah. So it was kind of like an avoided place, and with like reason, you know what I mean? In that region, which is about the size of Massachusetts and has like a population of like 1.5 million people or something like that, we have 13 Assemblies of God churches.
I'm going to show you and see if that'll work. Okay. So can we see this map?
Sort of,
awesome. Yeah. Here, hold on. Let me put you guys as the entire screen there. Okay. And the name of it was.
Okay. So we live in this tiny little purple dot here. This little guy right there.
Yeah.
And it's really cool because this past year the Assemblies of God celebrated 50 years in the department that we live in now, and they have 45 Assemblies of God churches, which is awesome, and they're doing really, really great work. So this is the city that we're moving to, this other purple called the Cauca. It just went away. Sorry. This purple here, can't see my finger.
It's a little bit on the coast. It's on the coast a little bit too.
Yes. Yeah. This purple here, the Cauca. So it's obviously much bigger than the little dot, and there's only 13 Assemblies of God churches in that department.
Wow.
So it's a really cool opportunity that we have that after talking with, our missionary leadership and then also talking with the national leadership here in Colombia and how it's a really great opportunity that they really see us to be able to step into on the side of helping with church planting
and church strengthening.
And church strengthening. That region is one of the most diverse regions in Colombia as far as they have several different indigenous groups that live there. The city of Popayán is the capital city, and it's a university city for Colombia. The Colombians travel from around the country to study there and then go back. So it's a really cool opportunity to be able to work with these two contrasting people groups of youth and then also like indigenous people groups and unreached people groups, but kind of all in one place. It's this crazy mix of things that we could have never imagined because we came to Colombia really feeling called to work with unreached people groups, indigenous groups, and we weren't trying to force any doors open, but it just wasn't as like straightforward as maybe one would think. It was unexpected, since we got here, us being younger, we've made like a good connection with youth, and a lot of pastors have really tried to utilize us for different youth camps and different things like that. And so it seemed like, man, like everything's going in the direction of youth ministry, which is awesome. Yeah.
Youth sometimes here in Colombia encompasses college age students as well. So I think sometimes when we hear youth, we think like, 13 to 18, but youth really extends in Colombia, at least from 13, 14, 15, well into 30s.
Yeah. And so we were kind of thinking like, okay, well, this is the direction that things are looking like they're going just by opportunities that we're getting. And then what we're feeling on our heart, like, it doesn't seem like it's, like heading that way. And it was like, okay, well, we'll be patient. And God, like, you called us and you'll set it up the way that you want to set it up. And then all of a sudden, like, we arrive at this place where there's 13 churches, there's young people all throughout the city that there's a huge need there. And then all around the city are different indigenous groups, different remote communities and stuff like that. Some of the areas are still a little bit complicated with drug trafficking and stuff like that. But it's a really cool opportunity. And so in the next year, we're planning to move from our city of Armenia to Popayán to begin working alongside the churches there. And
we're really excited about it. It's really cool how God really, I said it before and I'll say it again, how he really like knows the things of our heart and the things that like, man, we want to help, and where does it feel like we can go, and where do we feel like the door is open, and where do we feel like doors are closed. And this door just flew right open. And so it's super cool to see how that happens because, like we said, expect. In the beginning, we're like, what are we doing? How are we doing this? Like, what's going on? And then for it to be something so clear cut and so like, oh no, this is it. Like, this is totally it. And so we're excited.
Yeah, and the pastors that we've met in the region already have been really awesome.
Yeah, they're great.
We're really looking forward to partnering alongside of them. The presbyter of the region has been like so
Amazing.
helpful and
Yeah.
so like looking out for us and how we can serve alongside, but how we can also do it like in the safest way possible. And so it's been really cool. I think that if we've learned anything, that going to this place is going to be really unexpected. I think that everything that we're thinking about and everything that we're excited about, it probably won't look just like that. But this whole year has taught us that that's probably the best path for us to go down, and where God's going to do the most work. So we're really excited for it, even though we don't really know what we're excited for.
Yeah. No, that's awesome, and that's such just it's amazing how God kind of brought this opportunity, like essentially knocked on your door, something that you weren't pursuing, something that probably wasn't even remotely on your radar, and just to think like all the things you were prepared to do. You have background. Well, we know that you have background in youth ministry, and so you've worked with youth, and you had a heart for unreached people groups, and so it wasn't like you came into Colombia saying, okay, we can only do one thing. You had like a myriad of things, and still God comes up with something that you couldn't expect. It's like it's just nuts, but it's also so cool because it's not like just something that you on your own feel like, which would be totally legitimate to be like, okay, God really put this burden on our heart to do this. It's something that the Colombian church has invited you to do, that there's open doors and there's backing, and you're serving them by entering this new opportunity. So I thought it was just, I'm so excited for you guys. I'm so proud of you for saying yes and stepping into that unknown. That's so cool. So I know Mel would say the same if she didn't have to be rocking Jesse right now. But we want to thank you again. If you were watching this live, thank you for commenting. Thank you for saying hi and listening to a little bit of Brian and Raquel Correia, seeing Danisia and meeting Sean. Exciting networking happening there. And we hope you enjoyed it. If you're watching this on a replay, we hope that you got to connect with some of the things that were shared this evening. And I just want to encourage you to like and share this video. That will be able to get more viewership and more people to hear the story of Brian and Raquel. But also, really, as we kind of end, I wanted to really encourage you that if you're watching this, or if you're going to be watching this on a replay, if you would just drop a note by email or Facebook to Brian or Raquel or Danisia, and just tell them, just encourage them and say, hey, thank you for following the call of God. Merry Christmas during this time where you're away from family. God bless you. May you just feel his hand on your ministry, and just send a note of encouragement. So I issue that challenge to you who are tuning in live or on the replay, that if you would do that, and you can do that by sending an email. Guys, what is your email, Brian and Raquel?
Brian.Correia, so Correia at agmd.org.
And mine is the same, but with Raquel instead of Brian.
Okay. All right. So yeah, send an email and just drop a note and say hi, and they can find you on Facebook too, or I know Instagram they can find you.
We are everywhere. Instagram, Facebook. If you really look hard enough, we're on Snapchat, but we don't use it that often.
Yeah. And Danisia.ruffin.org.
Yeah.
Or Danisia.ruffin at agmd.org. Sorry.
agmd.org. All right, I'm going to put this on there real quick. That's for Danisia. Danisia, say hi once again.
Oh, let me turn her.
Hi, everybody.
And thank you so much for just being willing to say hi. And we would have loved to hear even more of your story, but thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Just, it's been really great to be here with you guys from Colombia. Maybe one day I'll see you guys in Honduras.
That's amazing. That's awesome. And so, yeah, if you're watching this live or on the replay, just encourage you. Send them a note. Say, hey, we're praying for you. Hey, we saw you on Facebook Live, Coffee with a Missionary, and we're just excited for what God's doing in you. Merry Christmas. I'm sure you guys would appreciate that, right?
Yeah.
I'm all about words of affirmation, so those would probably make me cry. But also about prayer, like honestly, we have felt prayer in so many ways this year, like with the unexpected stuff. So like, if you say that you're praying for us, we do really value it, because there are some days that we're like, there's got to be someone praying for us because we don't know how we would have made it through the day. So thanks in advance.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for saying the time, for taking the time, and for having a blast with us. And we'll see everyone again in 2019 for talking with more missionaries and just hearing what God's doing around Latin America and the Caribbean. So we'll see you next time, everybody.
See ya.
Bye.